It feels like every Pokemon these days is given a signature move, signature ability, or something to set them apart and make them unique. Upon the release of Sun and Moon, Vikavolt and the Ultra Beasts were the only fully evolved Pokemon to not have been given a signature move or ability in Gen 7. However, Vikavolt's pre-evolution Charjabug was given a signature ability, and the Ultra Beasts are part of a group that shares a new ability, Beast Boost, which could be considered signature depending on your definition and who you ask. In Gen 8, Thievul, Dubwool, Boltund, Pincurchin, Indeedee, Basculegion, and Ursaluna were not given signature moves or abilities, but Thievul is the only Pokemon with Stakeout in Gen 8 due to Dexit. Dubwool was one of 2 evolutionary lines at release to have been given Fluffy. Boltund's pre-evolution Yamper was given a signature ability Ball Fetch. Pincurchin was one of 2 Pokemon on release to have been given Zingzap and Electric Surge. Indeedee has 2 forms, both of which are one of 2 Pokemon with Psychic Surge. Basculegion was one of 2 evolutionary lines on release to have been given Wave Crash. And Ursaluna was one of 2 Pokemon on release to have been given Headlong Rush, and it was given an alternate form with a signature move and ability in the next generation. In Gen 9, Lokix, Squawkabilly, Rabsca, Cyclizar, Cetitan, Clodsire, the Paradox Pokemon, and the Loyal 3 were the only fully evolved Pokemon to not have been given a signature move or ability. Among these Pokemon, Lokix has a signature typing and was one of 2 Pokemon on release to have been given Axe Kick. Squawkabilly has 4 separate forms and 4 ability options. Rabsca is one of 2 Pokemon to have been given Revival Blessing. Cyclizar was one of 2 Pokemon on release to have been given Shed Tail. The Cetitan line are the only Pokemon to be able to learn Ice Spinner by level up. Clodsire is Clodsire, and the Paradox Pokemon and the Loyal 3, like the Ultra Beasts, all share abilities, which could be counted as signature depending on who you ask. Previous generations did not do this, at least not nearly to the extent of Gen 7 through 9, and I crunched the numbers to prove it. Here's how many fully evolved Pokemon were introduced in each generation, and how many of them were given new signature moves or abilities at the time of their release. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's a good thing, because pretty much every Pokemon line has some kind of unique identity with a move, ability, or form that only they have and only they can offer. It gives them a special role on a playthrough or on a competitive team, and it gives them some kind of way to stand out, with there being 721 Pokemon going into Gen 7 to compete with, and even more in Gen 8 and 9. If they don't have something to make them unique, why would anyone use them over existing Pokemon? Early generations have already introduced the basic moves like Tackle, the Elemental Punches, Thunder Wave, Swords Dance, Recover, and things like that. So in order to keep things interesting, signature moves have to be different, which typically results in them being more powerful. This is the same reason that I generally think that power creep and Dexit are not bad things, but rather necessary steps to maintain the longevity of new content. Sure, older Pokemon typically aren't given this same treatment, but they had their time to shine, and if these newer Pokemon aren't given the chance to be different in some way and offer something new, either in the form of a signature move, ability, or higher stats, then they will never have their time to shine at all. Dexit, what fans call the fact that Sword and Shield didn't have the National Dex, was one of the most controversial decisions ever made by the Pokemon Company. I can absolutely understand the frustration that a game whose whole thing is gotta catch 'em all makes it so that you can't catch 'em all, something that you've been able to do in every previous game. Dexit also didn't just leave Pokemon behind, it left out certain moves, items, abilities, and entire mechanics that fans loved using all the way through Gen 7. However, while it might not be the most fun solution, it is a way to make the increasing power and variety of new Pokemon and new mechanics not nearly as chaotic and overwhelming as it would be if all Pokemon and all mechanics were allowed all the time. With fewer returning Pokemon, that means less competition, and these signature moves, abilities, forms, base stats, or whatever design element necessary to make a Pokemon stand out doesn't have to be nearly as strong as it would be if all Pokemon were in the game. Signature mechanics can give new Pokémon balanced options when existing mechanics would be too strong on them or they just wouldn't make sense on them thematically. King Gambit wasn't given access to Knockoff because that would be really strong, but it was given a signature move Kowtow Cleave, which is a solid, consistent, and reliable Dark-type move. Flash Fire wouldn't really make sense on Darkspun, but Well-Baked Body, a new ability with a similar effect, does make sense as it's a Pokemon resembling baked bread. None of the physical ghost moves would really make sense on a Alolan Marowak, but a new move, Shadow Bone, makes perfect sense and is very solid and reliable. Water Veil preventing burns wouldn't really make sense on Baxcalibur, and it would be pretty underwhelming anyway, but Thermal Exchange makes sense and is quite solid since it has an additional effect of +1 attack when getting hit with a fire move. Dazzling or Queenly Majesty wouldn't really make sense on Farigiraf, but a new ability, Armor Tail, that does the same thing works great. Signature moves and abilities are also a good way to show off new game mechanics and animation capabilities. Signature Z-moves in Gen 7 have unique animations, and plenty of Pokemon in Gen 8 were given Gigantamax forms and signature Gigantamax moves to help portray the extent of the generation's gimmick. Cramorant's signature ability Gold Missile has a unique animation that helps give the Pokemon immense character, and same thing with Cinderace's signature move Pyro Ball. Galarian Slowbro's signature move Shell Sidearm can be physical or special and changes animation depending on that. Terrapagos' signature move Terra Starstorm shows off the potential of the new Stellar Terra type. However, it's a bad thing because of how central these signature mechanics become to a Pokemon's design and how that affects them from a game balance perspective. Some Pokemon are given incredibly powerful signature mechanics, but are balanced out by having low stats, something that wouldn't need to be done if they weren't given those powerful signature mechanics. In recent generations, the worst victim has to be Tinkaton. Tinkaton has one of the most broken signature moves of all time, Gigaton Hammer. It's 160 power, 100% accurate, and simply can't be selected consecutively. On any steel type with an attack stat higher than 100, this move would break the game, but it doesn't since it's on Tinkaton, a mon with 75 base attack, which is lower than Furret. Sure, this makes Gigaton Hammer balanced, but it also makes all of Tinkaton's other non-signature moves way worse as a result. This is what happens when a Pokemon's stats are completely designed around balancing one super powerful signature move. If Gigaton Hammer was made to be weaker, like it's just a steel type Wood Hammer clone, but Tinkaton was instead given a higher attack stat, maybe say 105 instead of 75, it would be better overall since that higher attack stat makes its other moves better. Another example is Araquanid, which has one of the strongest abilities ever created, Water Bubble. This ability has come up in a few of my videos, and it never fails to amaze me on how broken it is. Water Bubble doubles the damage from Water-type moves, halves the damage from Fire-type moves, and prevents the user from getting burned. It's essentially Water Veil, Heat Proof, and physical and special huge power for Water-type moves all in one ability. Like Tinkaton though, it's balanced because Araquanid has a low 70 attack and 50 special attack, not to mention its 42 speed that would have to be in Trick Room for it to be moving first. Again, if Water Bubble wasn't made to be incredibly broken, maybe just a 1.3 or 1.5 times water boost, then Araquanid could have instead been built with higher attack, maybe 100, making its other moves better and more balanced overall. This is also done in reverse as early as Gen 3, where abilities were introduced, where a Pokemon is given incredibly powerful stats, but a drawback signature ability that balances them out. Slacking is the first of this Achilles heel ability archetype, and its signature ability Truant is so centralizing to its design that its legendary level stats are pretty much completely unusable. Regigigas and Archeops followed in the next two generations, and they aren't doing much better either. Signature moves are also often being made instead of more widespread moves that more Pokemon would benefit from. Instead of finally making a no drawback physical attacking electric type move with wide distribution, just Zeraora gets that with Plasma Fists, a move that could easily be made to be weaker but more widespread, leaving many physical attacking electric types with poor options. Instead of finally making an accurate physical attacking rock-type move with wide distribution, just Iron Boulder gets that with Mighty Cleave, a move that could, again, be made weaker but more widespread, leaving many physical attacking rock types with inaccurate options. There are a lot more of these cases too, like Lugia and Yveltal having some of the only good special attacking flying type moves, a few different ghost types hogging up the good physical attacking moves, Inteleon and Walking Wake having great special water moves, in the unplayable Starmobile Revavroom forms having 5 signature moves, the most notable probably being the fairy one, Magical Torque. In the process of trying to make these Pokemon unique, old and new Pokemon that don't have the privilege of having those signature moves get completely screwed over. Cloth was given a signature ability, but since Iron Boulder is hogging up the good physical rock move, Cloth's stab options suck. Same goes for Iron Thorns, which has it even worse since it's a physical attacking electric rock type without any signature moves. In Gen 7, there were 41 new abilities and only one was not a signature ability at the time of release, Slush Rush, 2 if you don't count Beast Boost as signature. In Gen 8, there were 33 new abilities and every single one was a signature ability. In Gen 9, there were 40 new abilities, and only 2 were not signature at the time of release, Cudchew and Sharpness, 5 if you don't count Photosynthesis, Cork Drive, and Toxic Chain as signature. So instead of finally making a widespread special Intimidate, or a Misty Terrain equivalent to Surge Surfer, or an ability that increases the power of kicking moves, or something that could benefit more than just one Pokemon, those efforts are instead focused on making these new Pokemon more unique with signature abilities. I'd argue that this actually makes for worse longevity of these mechanics, since some of these Pokemon weren't included in the following game, as opposed to widespread mechanics that could stay to the next generation, so their signature ability might as well be considered a generational gimmick since that's how long it lasted. Speaking of generational gimmicks, another issue with signature mechanics is their ties to them, giving them significantly less longevity if that gimmick goes away. I mentioned Terapagos earlier as a Pokemon whose signature move helped introduce a new game mechanic, but the issue with this is that Terapagos' stellar form is tied to terastallization, a generational gimmick that we don't know if it will be kept in later games. Ogerpon also has a unique interaction with terastallization, with it getting a new signature ability when it terras, and this is on the chopping block as well. All Gigantamax forms and moves are gone, and Zacian, Zamazenta, and Eternatus all had signature moves that dealt double damage to Dynamax Pokemon in Sword and Shield, but with no Dynamax in Scarlet and Violet, these moves don't have secondary effects anymore. Necrozma could Ultra Burst and have a signature Z move, but when Z moves were removed, so is this form. And of course, all Mega Evolutions have disappeared, along with the signature abilities tied to those forms. That is until Legends ZA, where they are now back, with champions announcing that Megas will be part of the first competitive format, and the Omni Ring likely bringing all of these gimmicks back at one point, so maybe this problem is solved. But what do you think? Are signature mechanics a good way to introduce new Pokemon and make them unique? Or do their power and versatility make them an over-centralizing part of their design? Anyway, if you want to support me and my channel, just leave a nice comment since I do read all comments. You can also become a member for 99 US cents a month to get a badge next to your name and early video access like all of these lovely people. If you want bonus content, check out my second channel, Extra Bell, where I post videos I've scrapped from the main channel, as well as more casual, unscripted videos. Likes are also one of the ways that YouTube determines if a video should be passed around to more people, so if you feel that this video deserves to be, I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching.